Welcome back to the channel one, and we're here with another episode of Dark Episode 3. What a hell of a cliffhanger in the last episode. Mikkel is in 1986. We met his parents, and I'm still a bit confused as to how that works. I mean, the order that we have met doesn't have any recollection of meeting someone named Mikkel, or at least none that we've seen. We may see the effects of that this episode, so that's a possibility. But he wasn't that young, so he definitely recalled that. And who knows, maybe he named his son Mikkel because he met someone named Mikkel in the past. Um, but we'll see how that plays out, how the series itself deals with time, what the rules of the timeline are. If you look at something like The Umbrella Academy, as much as I love the last season, it wasn't clearly defined in terms of how time works and you know what the effects are with messing with things in the timeline. But um, yeah, it's I mean, I suppose this is uh a fictional look at what the effects of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster effectively has on the rest of Europe, in this case on Winden. um yeah, definitely an interesting one. And I mean, I've watched the Chernobyl HBO miniseries. Embarrassingly, I didn't know much about the event prior to that, but once I watched the series, I went and did some research on it. I don't think that's something you should find out from a mini series or any show in particular, but you know, it's good to have those stories told so that we never forget those things. But yeah, it was definitely a tragic event, and uh, I can definitely see similarities, especially with the score between Chernobyl and the score for Dark. It's very eerie, and I'm not sure if it's the same composer, but I do know. I think her name is um, Gunder, uh, Hilder, Hilder, Hilder Guadanider. I'm gonna mess up her name, but yeah, she did a fantastic job with the score on Chernobyl, and I'm not sure if it's the same composer here, but there are definitely similarities. I think she won an Emmy for the score she composed as well. So I enjoyed that. I'm sure I'll enjoy this as well. We also had, yes, Eric made a reappearance, not alive, but he's back. The stranger that went to the Wyndham Hotel with his strange little briefcase machine. I guess another throwback to the Umbrella Academy. Um, and he's disposing of the body. Eric has the same scars around his eyes, and I'm guessing the same damage to his ears as the kid they found in the beginning of the last episode. We still don't know who that kid is as yet. He's an unidentified body at the moment. But I'm guessing he came here through the chair that Eric was being strapped in as well. So, I still just don't know how exactly that ties into the nuclear plant. I mean, I initially thought the cave was the doorway between the different timelines, but what would be the purpose of the chair? We still don't know why they're sending kids back to different timelines. What would be the purpose of all of that? Um, so we're still missing the why as to why all this is happening. Why send the kids back to the current timeline with evidence of the past timeline? I mean, surely you'd want to keep those things a secret. So there's that. And I mean, Ulrich's mom suspects her husband of something, and I guess that's the takeaway. Do not trust any of the elders in this series. They all seem to be up to some shady shit. So I don't trust any of them. Of course, and my main suspicion lies with um, what's the family name? Check the board. The Tieperman family or Tiedemann family. Need to check if that's a D or a P. I have horrible handwriting. Apologies. But that's Alexander and Regina and Bartos, right? Their family seems to be a bit too involved in everything that is happening. I don't think it's any coincidence that her hotel is the hotel the stranger went to, and she refuses to have that hotel shut down, run out of business. I initially assumed it was because okay for her family or whatever the case might be, but the hotel itself may just be a front, just as the nuclear facility is being used by her husband for some nefarious deeds. So their family is definitely at the top of my list of suspicious characters. Not sure what Bartos has to do with it, but I mean, he had a phone the last episode, which clearly wasn't his. He didn't have the pin to end to gain access to it, but he took it from someone. But their family is definitely at the top of my list of suspicious characters here. I'm definitely intrigued by the series. I can't wait to find out more. So let's check it out. Okay, so this is after
Weißt du, wo Mats ist?
Mads disappears.
Nun sag doch was!
Are we back to current time or are we still in 1986?
Ines, kannst du heute auch die Nachtschicht machen? Frau Schüttlers Tochter hat Fieber und
Ja,
musste
we're still in
Benny um 6 Uhr
1986.
fahren. Ich dachte nur, du hast ja keine Familie. Ja, so wollte ich das jetzt nicht sagen.
Ist kein Problem.
They've done some fantastic casting with the younger versions of the characters, though.
November 86. Nach dem mysteriösen Verschwinden eines 11-jährigen Jungen in der Kleinstadt Winden vor mehr als 4 Wochen werden die Stimmen gegen die lokalen Ermittlungsbehörden immer lauter. Brand im Schweizer Chemiekonzern Sandoz vor 4 Tagen spitzt sich die Lage auf den heimischen Gewässern zu. So konnten im Rhein vermehrt Giftstoffe nachgewiesen werden.
Yes, this was a sheriff at the time.
Essen, Kleidung, Fechtunterricht. Wer bezahlt denn das alles? Schau dich doch mal an, sitzt da wie so ein Schluck Wasser in der Kurve. Hallo, Regina, ich rede mit dir.
Ah, okay, that's Regina. Yeah, I think that's some of the casting that's not really that on point, but it works. I mean, I know a lot of people hate the comparison with Stranger Things and Dark, but I guess this is why people compare the two, because of the 80s. I didn't know that we'd be spending as much time in this timeline with this series.
Ich suche meine Mama.
Ist ja nicht der Kindergarten.
Die ist die Direktorin.
Herr Hubert? Er ist vielleicht nur Schwuchtel, aber ganz bestimmt keine Frau.
Yeah, this has got to be confusing as heck.
Morgen, Claudia.
Morgen.
Erster Tag als Chefin heute.
Ah, so Regina's mother ran the facility before her husband took over.
Das ist ein Buch.
Danke.
Yeah. Yeah, all that.
Vielleicht ein Wolf.
A wolf? Really?
Keine Bissspuren. Nichts.
What kind of police are you? How would you possibly think a wolf did all of that? No blood. You're there. There's no blood, no... You're terrible at your job.
Frau Tiedemann, Tronte Nielsen vom Tagesanzeiger ist da. Wegen dem Interview. Und hier sind die Werte aus 86 und
Nielsen.
85, die Sie haben wollten.
That's Ulrich's family name, right?
Sind Sie sicher, dass es die richtigen Zahlen sind?
Ja.
I'd like to report a missing kid.
Zu meinem Vater.
Me.
Wie heißt er denn?
Ulrich Nielsen?
Ulrich Nielsen? Der Ulrich Nielsen?
Never say never.
Hat er das gemacht? Hat Ulrich das gemacht?
I mean, couldn't it be another... If someone says that, my first thought would be, okay, maybe it's another Nielsen, not necessarily that Ulrich. I mean, I'm sure Ulrich is a not such an unpopular name there.
Gleich wird jemand kommen, um dich abzuholen und sich um das zu kümmern. Und Ich kümmere mich in der Zeit um Ulrich.
Why is he so eager to arrest the kid? I guess maybe Ulrich was a troublemaker back in the day, but even so, the kid said it wasn't him.
Ein Interview? Ist es dein Ernst, Tronte?
Die Leute interessiert.
Yeah, meaning you'll never get an appointment.
Ich vermisse dich.
Ich dachte, wir haben das geklärt.
Bitte.
This is Jana's husband.
Vielleicht.
Interesting. Jana's husband was having an affair with Regina's mother. Well, look who it is.
Hallo.
Ich bringe dich jetzt ins Krankenhaus. Schauen wir uns mal deinen Arm an, okay? Danach bringe ich dich heil wieder nach Hause.
Do you even know where his home is? How about tasting music, Ulrich? Still don't like you, but you're tasting music. Seems to just be a lazy cop who can't do his job and is just eager to arrest someone for something.
Den du geschickt hast. Findest du das lustig?
Welcher Junge?
Glaube ja nicht, dass du
Especially considering that, you know, the family's son just went missing. Oh, I'm here to arrest the other son for no reason.
das auf der Wiese.
Welche Wiese?
Hast du die Schafe getötet?
Wenn du dir nicht den ganzen Tag dein Hirn wegsaufen würdest, dann wäre Mats vielleicht schon wieder hier. Schwester Ines macht jetzt einen Verband, okay? Dann kannst du wieder nach Hause.
Bernd, ich muss mit dir reden.
Yeah, you can say that when you're going through the door.
Diese Werte haben nichts mit den Meldewerten zu tun. Hier. Überall. Das geht seit 3 Monaten so.
Weißt du, was sich seit Tschernobyl verändert hat? Bilder gesehen. Das geht nicht mehr aus ihren Köpfen raus. Aber Angst ist der schlimmste Feind des Fortschritts.
Not really. Fear is actually a good measure of progress. Ignorance is what you should be afraid. Is what you should be afraid of.
Dann sollte ich umso mehr wissen, was das zu bedeuten hat.
That's Charlotte. Okay.
Sind die nun vergiftet worden?
Kaum. Alles deutet auf plötzlichen Herztod hin.
Herztod?
Yeah, but all 33 at the same time.
Und was kann so eine Panik auslösen?
Alles möglich.
Auch ein Mensch?
Ein einzelner Mensch, solange er nicht Freddy Krüger ist, muss er sich schon ziemlich ins Zeug legen.
Missing a hoof. Jesus. Why do you have it out for this one kid instead of doing your job?
Was wir wissen ist ein Tropfen,
How many sheep did he say?
was wir
33?
nicht wissen.
Interesting. That number comes up again.
passiert ist zu Hause, ja? Du kannst doch erstmal hier bleiben. Hast du was zu lesen?
I'm wondering.
Ich komme aus der Zukunft.
Considering how Inez, her behavior in episode 1, and the fact that Michael left her the note and told her when to do not open until this date. Could it be that Mikkel is Michael? And he's not her biological son, he just came there, she adopted him, and he had Jonas. I would be dashing out of there, man. Something touching you from behind is one thing, but something just falling out of the sky and just hitting you is different altogether. Blame this on satanic music, okay?
Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Ulrich.
I guess they had a thing since they were kids. They just married different people.
Schon ein bisschen enttäuschend.
Ich hab's mir irgendwie lauter vorgestellt. Greller. Ich glaube, Winden will nicht so einfach weg.
Na, vielleicht beim nächsten Mal.
Seems younger than he is, though. And I would use my knowledge of the future to my advantage to get filthy rich, okay? Although he's a kid, he probably, didn't make notes of anything too relevant, but must be something. That book again. Stranger had a copy. It's been vanishing at night for quite some time. And she only just noticed. Be careful not to get lost in those mines. They're along the same path, but different timelines. It's constructing the same device the stranger had. All right. Theory time. All right. The another fantastic episode, and I gotta say, the nailed the casting for the younger versions of the characters we met for the first 2 episodes. And the first thing that stuck out to me, though, the only person we have not been introduced to in 1986 is Michael. Right? We've seen the younger versions of all the other characters, and Inez and Jana as well. But we haven't seen Michael. We haven't seen Michael, and the fact that I'm now thinking, considering that Michael's the only clue he left before killing himself, was the letter to his mom, which he told her not to open until a specific date. And then following that, she's the only person he told, at least so far in 1986, that he's from the future. My only conclusion here is that Mikkel is actually Michael, but Inez adopted him, and initially I thought maybe it had something to do with Ulrich, maybe that was his brother or something, but no, that threw that one out the window. But I don't think it's a coincidence that Michael is the only one we didn't see here, and for all intents and purposes, Inez being a nurse, we haven't seen any indication that she has a kid. She's working late shifts. She obviously has a soft spot for children and all of that. I think she takes Mikkel in, and I do think she adopts him and then names him Michael. I think she does believe that he is from the future, which is why she's one of the first persons we were introduced to in the very first episode. That she's the one he left a letter to, and she's the one who seems to have knowledge of, aside from the other older folks who are suspicious, but she's the one who we can say with certainty has knowledge of the events that are happening. So I think she adopts Michael. She adopts Mikkel, calls him Michael, and that's my theory so far. It's still a bit difficult to decipher how that ties into the bigger picture, but I think I can say with certainty that Mikkel is definitely going to grow up to be Michael and Jonas's dad. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. It's baffling how many of these. It doesn't appear as though there are any families in this town that have not slept with each other at one point or another. So I would not be surprised if everyone is actually related. Because we now found out that Jana's husband was having an affair with Regina's mom, Claudia. The guy at the security officer at the nuclear facility seems to have some interest in her, but nope, she's having an affair with Jana's husband, who's been sneaking out at night for years, and his wife is only just noticing that in I think the year is 2019, right? His wife is only just noticing that when they're much older, or she just now have taken an interest in it enough to follow him to see where he's going. But he's sneaking out. Ulrich does the same thing. He sneaks out. Only difference is he sneaks out in the morning. But he seems to have had a relationship with Hannah from they were kids, although here she's underage, so I'm not sure when that relationship would have started. It definitely wouldn't be appropriate at that point. So she seems to be the younger of the two. I keep confusing Charlotte and Hannah though, but I think they just seem familiar initially, but I have a good idea of who Charlotte is now. So she's the artist, I suppose, and she's taking note of the events that have been happening, the birds dying and stuff. Nothing's been done about it for decades, and the number 33 keeps coming back up. When the sheriff, Mr. Tiedemann, was out in the field, trying to come up with some far-fetched theory that Ulrich is somehow tied to all these animals that are dying, whether it's through some satanic cult or mischief or whatever the case might be, which is just being ridiculous. Do your job, man. Do your job. He seemed a bit too eager, and I'm going to assume that Ulrich is a bit of a troublemaker, So maybe he earned that status he has in town, that reputation. But nonetheless, it's a bit of a reach to think he can kill 33 animals, give them heart attacks all at the same time. And yes, sheep are easily frightened, and that what the MD said is, or the coroner said, if that's what he is, he's working on an animal, but what he said is correct. But all 33. And again, 33 ties back to the events that keep happening every 33 years. And yeah, Alexander having taken over the facility 33 years ago from the current timeline. So that number keeps coming back. So clearly there is some significance. Still need a bit more detail to verify how that ties in. I'm not sure who the man with the machine, I'm guessing maybe some sort of time machine. I'm not sure who that is. I'm going to wager, I guess, that his younger self is what we saw last episode, come to the hotel. But anyway, at first glance, I'm thinking there are two sides. The town folks that are unaware about what is happening, and then there's some nefarious entity working in the background. But it feels as though there are at least three entities that we don't know about. Yeah, because I mean, if that device that he's working on is what he's using to move through time, what is the purpose of the chair that they've been using? So I feel as though there's a third party, one that is using the chair, trying to maybe perfect it, and I don't know. Let me hold off on that a bit until I get more information. But for the time being, I mean, at the very least, we've been introduced to everyone. No one seems to be there are no good person. There are no good persons in this town. At least none that I can wager. Right? Everybody seems to be caught up in something or another. I mean, Regina's mother, Claudia, although she got this prestigious job to head the facility, unprecedented, especially for the time, a woman holding such a high position. But of course, this is the guy passing off his mistakes and his BS onto her. She now knows about it. She discovered this huge, I guess, waste disposal location that they have there, or they've just been dumping their waste there, and it's clearly having an effect on the town. The birds are falling out of the sky, and all of the animals are dying. And I would like to address his comment about fear holding back progress, and there is some truth to what he said. There's this fantastic series on Netflix called The Alienist. I don't think it's been greenlit for a second season as yet, but if you're looking for just a one-off series to watch, it may or may not be renewed for a second season, but the first season is contained enough that you can enjoy it, much like something like The Watchmen, and you can enjoy the first season and be satisfied, right? But it spoke about profiling and using science, back in when England was grimy and there was this disbelief in science, and it was considered to be witchcraft and of the sort. And the scientists that we do follow in the actual series is trying to build a case around this supposed sociopath who's going around killing kids and basically taking parts as trophies, and he's trying to build a profile. But at the time, things like that were unheard of, and people feared it again. So the reason why I bring it up is the whole concept of fear, and that does validate his argument to some extent. And there are many examples, and that's just the one that's fresh in my mind because I rewatched it recently, and the progress he made with that case, despite all the disbelief and the fear surrounding it. But at the same time, I think ego and your failure to learn from history is far worse than what fear could ever accomplish. I think fear is necessary, because there does need to be some limitations, and it's not limitation on progress per se, but I mean, morally, or to take a step back and see what the wider impacts of what something that you're working on, what the effects may be. Fear is a healthy, it's healthy in small doses, right? And it helps you to have perspective, to kind of keep your ego in check. So fear is necessary. I think it's necessary. I think it can hold back progress if you let it, but I think reasonably, fear in small doses can have a positive outlook as far as progress, where progress is concerned, right? So he's right, but only to the argument he's trying to make in convincing her that it's hogwash, but in other instances not so much, right? It's always good to never forget things like that, and that is science. You do one thing, and that's what we go through trial periods. You perform this experiment, you see what works and what doesn't work, and you learn from that. Without fear, that element goes out the window, and you just create something, release it, and to hell with whatever, to hell with the effects. So fear is healthy in small doses to give us perspective. So yeah, I mean, I feel for Mikkel a bit, being stuck in this timeline, being a kid, not knowing what to do, and as I said, I'm sticking to that theory because I hope the show doesn't prove me wrong, but I think Mikkel is Michael. I would definitely explain why he ends up killing himself. At least it would lend itself to that argument. But the people in the town, there are just no innocent people here. Not a single one. I mean, I disliked Ulrich very much. I like younger Ulrich to a point, only because of his taste in music. But that moment with him and Mikkel in the cave was very touching. He clearly loves his son. I wish he had that same motivation when someone else's son had disappeared. Yes, but it's never too late to grow a conscience. So he has, and I don't know whether this show will have a happy ending. I don't know if it'll have a happy ending. Chernobyl itself had a bittersweet ending. Progress was made, but at a cost. So we'll see how this plays out with the people of this town. It's clearly a well-kept secret that some of the people there know about, but it's passing from one generation to the next, and no one seems to be interested in breaking that cycle, with the exception of Michael, and I think passing that baton on to Jonas. But I'm definitely intrigued, guys. Definitely intrigued. Those are my theories so far. As more details are revealed, I'm definitely, I don't know what I need to maybe build a virtual whiteboard, because you guys were not exaggerating when you said, it can be a bit confusing if you're not able to follow every single person. I need to perhaps, I have a large screen monitor, so I maybe need to just create a virtual whiteboard, so that I can, have a more clear picture of who's what and where, and make the connections as they need to be. So unfortunately, I may retire the whiteboard for the next reaction and just use something I can manipulate a bit easier. But definitely still making notes, because even on my notepad, I have arrows going all over the place, because as things are revealed and I have to move this and yeah, so I may need something a bit more easily adjustable. So we'll see. We'll see how, if I can find something to make that work. But post on blue, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this episode. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.